There is a name, spoken 2,000 years ago, and still living in every language that ever borrowed a word for power. In German, Kaiser; in Russian, Tsar; in Arabic, Kaisar. Every one of them traces back to a single man, a single life. Close your eyes and imagine this. White marble columns catching torchlight, stone-paved roads echoing with the footsteps of thousands, narrow streets filled with the noise of teeming, restless life. Rome, before the emperors, before the legions stretched to the ends of the known world. And somewhere in that city, a boy from an almost forgotten family is growing up. Nobody knows his name yet, nobody fears him yet. But he carries inside him one of the sharpest minds the ancient world will ever produce, and that mind will never stop. Tonight we slip quietly into one of the most extraordinary, most dangerous, most deeply human stories history has ever given us. The story of Julius Caesar, beginning with the claim of divine blood and very little money, ending with 23 wounds on the floor of a Senate chamber, and in between, everything that changed the world. If these quiet journeys through history bring you some peace at the end of your day, a like, a subscribe, or a gentle thought left in the comments means more to this channel than you might imagine. It helps others find their way here, one sleepy soul at a time. But right now, there is nothing you need to do. Just let go. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow. Let the weight of today grow soft and distant, and come with me, back to Rome, 2,000 years ago. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the sounds around you drift further away, and let one image rise gently in your mind. A city of stone and firelight, a boy, a family with a great name and an empty treasury, and a world already on fire around them. Named Body 100 BC, Rome, the Suburra district, one of the city's most crowded, loudest, poorest corners, narrow streets, wooden buildings stacked on top of one another, the noise of market stalls, the shouts of children, the clatter of donkeys on uneven stone. And in one corner of this neighbourhood, a modest house belonging to a family called the Julius Caesars. Patricians, the noble class, ancient name, almost no money. Their claim was remarkable. They said they descended from the goddess Venus herself, through her son, the Trojan prince Aeneas, through Aeneas's son, Iulus, and from Iulus forward, generation after generation, a bloodline tied to the divine, a goddess in the family tree. In Rome, this sort of claim was not uncommon. Powerful families often traced themselves back to gods or heroes, but this particular family's claim would one day become something else entirely. Because a child would be born from this house who would not merely inherit the claim, he would eventually be declared a god himself. But that is far away. Right now, there is only this. A house on a noisy street. A woman named Aurelia Cotta, educated, strong, from a family that had actually produced consuls. A father who had risen as far as praetor, the second highest elected office in the Republic, and a boy growing up in the middle of a world beginning to crack apart at the seams. The morning a boy became head of the family. A morning like any other, a middle-aged man in a house in Rome is putting on his shoes, and he falls. No warning, no illness anyone had noticed, just a man and then a man on the floor. Gaius Julius Caesar, the father, was dead. The 16-year-old son walked into that room, and walked out of it as the head of the family, 16 years old. In Rome, that meant something specific and heavy. Debts to manage, alliances to maintain, marriage negotiations to oversee, political calculations to make. And the world around him was not peaceful. His uncle by marriage, the great populist general Marius, and his rival Sulla had torn the Republic between them like a wound that refused to close. Sulla had seized power. Marius's supporters were being hunted, and Julius Caesar was Marius's nephew. The funeral had barely ended. Danger was already at the door. Sulla's list growing up under a death order. Sulla's prescription lists were terror made visible. Your name appeared on a list. That was enough. Your property was forfeit. Your life was forfeit. Anyone could kill you without question. Anyone who brought your head received a reward. Julius Caesar's name was placed on the list. The reason was simple. He was Marius's nephew, and he was married to Cornelia, the daughter of Cinna, Sulla's political enemy. Sulla sent a message: divorce your wife, and you will be spared. Caesar refused. A 17-year-old boy refusing the most powerful man in Rome. He hid in the darkness, moving from house to house, district to district, never staying still, never sleeping in the same place twice. He fell sick. Like Bahada says, malaria, fever and shaking, and the cold breath of death finding him in whatever corner he was sheltering in. He bribed soldiers who came looking for him. He sent intermediaries, friends of the family, vestal virgins, to appeal to Sulla on his behalf. And Sulla, the dictator, the man who had marched an army on Rome itself, relented reluctantly, but not without words that would echo across centuries. In that young man, I see many a Marius. It was a warning. It was a prophecy. It was right. Caesar survived. But Rome was no longer safe. He joined the army. He went east. And for a time, he disappeared from the city's sight. Pirates, ransom, and a promise kept 75 BC, the Aegean Sea, a ship, open water, and on the horizon, sails that did not belong to anyone friendly. Cilician pirates. Caesar's vessel was surrounded, his men were captured, Caesar was taken hostage, and the pirates began to negotiate what they might get for him. They asked for 20 talents of silver. Caesar laughed. He actually laughed, looking them in the face, a prisoner, a captive. 20? Do you have any idea who you're holding? Ask for 50. The pirates stared at him, then agreed. And while they waited for the ransom to arrive, weeks on a small island, Caesar made himself entirely at home. He wrote poetry. He read it aloud to the pirates. When they didn't appreciate it, he called them illiterate barbarians. When he wanted to sleep, he told them to be quiet. He played games with them, ran races with them, laughed at their jokes and made his own. And every day, calmly, conversationally, almost as an afterthought, he told them the same thing. When I'm free, I'm coming back, and I'm going to crucify every one of you. They thought he was joking. The ransom was paid. Caesar was released. He walked to the nearest port, raised a fleet, sailed back, found them, and crucified every single one of them, exactly as he had promised. This moment reveals something essential about this man. He did not make empty threats. He did not forget insults. He did not let go of things that mattered to him. And no one, not pirates, not dictators, not senators, could afford to take him lightly. He was not yet 30, and Rome was already beginning to feel too small. Return to Rome, debt, eloquence, and the love of the people. Sulla died 78 BC. When the news reached Caesar, he decided it was safe enough to return, but he came back to almost nothing. His property had been seized. His wife's dowry was gone. The family was in debt. He settled into a modest house in the poor districts outside Rome's centre. But Caesar had two things that could not be taken: a razor-sharp mind and a voice unlike anyone else's. He began practicing law, and in Rome, practicing law was nothing like filling in documents at a desk. It meant standing in the open forum before crowds of citizens, arguing with passion and precision and theatre. Caesar was extraordinary at this. He moved when he spoke. His voice was not deep, but it carried. His sentences were clean and precise. His arguments landed exactly where he wanted them to. Even Cicero, the greatest orator of the age, a man whose words are still studied 2,000 years later, praised Caesar's style and clarity. And the people began to love him. This mattered enormously, because in Rome, the road to power always ran through the heart of the crowd. debt, strategy, and the gamble of a lifetime. Caesar kept borrowing money, spectacular, almost incomprehensible amounts. But this was not recklessness, it was strategy. Every coin spent was an investment in public games, in political alliances, in the goodwill of people who would one day be useful. He was elected aedile, the magistrate responsible for the city's infrastructure and public entertainments. And immediately he put on games that made Rome forget every spectacle that had come before. Hundreds of gladiators, elaborate staging, a generosity of scale that left crowds breathless. His colleague Bibulus was entirely overshadowed, so completely that Romans began joking about that year being the consulship of Julius and Caesar, pointedly leaving Bibulus's name out. Then came 63 BC, the election for Pontifex Maximus, chief priest of Rome, keeper of the sacred calendar, overseer of religious law, one of the most prestigious positions in the Republic. Caesar entered the race. His rivals were older, more experienced, more respectable, better funded, legitimately. Both sides spent enormous amounts on bribery. Caesar borrowed to keep pace. On the morning of the election, he kissed his mother at the door. "Today I will come home either as Pontifex Maximus or not at all, because if I lose, my debts are so great I cannot stay in this city." He won. His rivals' votes split between them. Caesar took a clear majority. He moved into the official residence on the Via Sacra and smiled. The first Triumvirate. 3 men, one world Rome's 2 most powerful men hated each other. Pompey, the great general, victor across 3 continents, beloved by the people as almost a god. Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome, a man who understood better than anyone how deeply money could reach into politics. And Caesar, in debt, brilliant, ambitious. Needing both of them, useful to both of them. Caesar saw something others missed. Pompey and Crassus separately were powerful. Together they would be unstoppable. And gaining one meant losing the other, unless someone could hold both at once. He worked, he negotiated, he built friendships with careful, patient precision. He gave his daughter Julia in marriage to Pompey. He married Calpurnia, daughter of Piso, who would be the next year's consul. The first triumvirate was born. Unofficial, no written agreement, no public announcement. Just 3 men who understood that together Rome was theirs to shape. Caesar won the consulship. And then the gates of Gaul opened before him. If these slow walks through history give you something, peace, curiosity, or just a little stillness at the end of a long day, consider subscribing. You won't miss what comes next. But we are not finished yet, because Caesar is still only a consul with a mandate and a handful of legions, and Gaul is waiting. The Conquest of Gaul. 8 years, a continent, and a name that echoed across the world. Caesar left Rome. He had 4 legions. He had enormous debts, and he knew that as long as he remained in the city, his enemies were sharpening their legal knives for him. But in Gaul, in that vast, unconquered territory stretching across what is now France, Belgium, Switzerland, and beyond, everything was different. The first year he stopped the Helvetii, a massive migration, hundreds of thousands of people moving west in a great column. Caesar intercepted them, turned them back, defeated them in open battle, and then wrote about it in the clear third-person prose that would make him one of the most read Latin authors in history. Caesar came, Caesar saw, Caesar conquered. Not yet, but already that was the shape of it. Then came Ariovistus, the Germanic warlord pressing at Rome's borders, defeated. The second year, 2 more legions, new campaigns, new territory. The Belgic tribes of the northeast, fierce, organised, united against him. He broke them apart, one by one, then the Rhine. Caesar ordered his engineers to build a bridge across one of Europe's great rivers. In 10 days it was done. He crossed. He spent time on the Germanic side, a show of force, a demonstration of reach. Then he marched back and ordered the bridge torn down behind him. The message was unmistakable. No obstacle holds me. No river is a boundary I cannot cross. Then Britain. Twice he crossed the Channel. No Roman commander had done it before. The island at the edge of the known world. Not a permanent conquest. It was too practical for that. But a symbol that reverberated across the Roman world. Caesar had gone to the end of the earth and come back. And then, Alesia, Vercingetorix, a young chieftain of the Arverni tribe. Brilliant, charismatic, dangerous. He had done something that had never been done before, unified the tribes of Gaul under a single banner, against Rome, against Caesar, and he had already beaten Caesar once, at Gergovia, a real defeat, a rare thing. Vercingetorix retreated to Alesia, a city on a high plateau, natural defences on every side, nearly impregnable. Caesar surrounded it, but then, from every corner of Gaul, relief armies began to march. Hundreds of thousands of warriors converging on Caesar. Kibos, which is to say, the die is cast, and he crossed. Civil war, Rome against Rome. The news reached Rome like a stone dropped into still water. Caesar has crossed the Rubicon. Senators gathered in panic, shouting, arguments, chairs overturned. Pompey, rather than defend the city, chose to flee, south, to the sea, and then east. Caesar advanced. The cities of northern Italy surrendered to him one after another, without a fight, opening their gates. Because Caesar had adopted a policy that surprised everyone. He did not kill his enemies. He pardoned them. Clementia, the Romans called it, mercy. This was new. This was unexpected, and people remembered it. He swept through Hispania in 27 days, then turned east again. After Pompeii, Dyrrhachium, it nearly broke him. His fortification line was breached. His men fell back. Soldiers died in numbers he could not afford. It is said that Caesar grabbed a fleeing standard bearer by the throat, held him, turned him back towards the enemy. Pharsalus, 48 BC. Pompey's army outnumbered Caesar's 2-1 in infantry. His cavalry was overwhelming. The battle was not equal. Caesar won anyway. Pompey fled to Egypt, and Caesar followed. Egypt, Alexandria. Caesar arrived at the coast, and was brought a gift, Pompey's severed head. Caesar wept, genuinely wept. The young king Ptolemy XIII had ordered it, thinking it would please the Roman general, thinking it was the kind of gift that brought alliances. He had misunderstood Caesar completely. And then, a night. Caesar working in his chambers in the royal palace. A door opened. A man entered carrying something wrapped in cloth or rolled linen. The sources differ on exactly what. He placed it on the floor, unrolled it. A woman stepped out. Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt, 21 years old, exiled from her own palace by her younger brother, shut out of her own country, and now standing in front of this Roman general, having smuggled herself into his presence with nothing but her intelligence and her nerve. Whether it was her legendary beauty or her extraordinary mind that struck Caesar first, we don't know, probably both. She spoke 9 languages. She was the first ruler of her dynasty in nearly 300 years to bother learning Egyptian. She understood astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, and she needed an ally, so did Caesar. The battle for Egypt was won. Ptolemy XIII was defeated at the Battle of the Nile, and Cleopatra was placed on the throne of Egypt. That spring, Caesar and Cleopatra sailed the Nile together, 400 ships in their procession, the royal barge leading, the splendor of the oldest civilization on earth surrounding them on every side, a Roman general and an Egyptian queen. and Cleopatra carrying his child, Caesarion, little Caesar. Caesar would return to Rome, Cleopatra would follow. She stayed in his villa on the banks of the Tiber. Rome watched her, whispered about her, an eastern queen beside their general, beside their dictator. The world was changing shape. Dictator Perpetuus, the height of everything Caesar, won the civil war. Thapsus, Africa, Munda, Hispania, the last of his enemies were defeated. The last holdouts fell or took their own lives. He returned to Rome, and Rome gave him everything. Dictator, then dictator for 10 years, then Dictator Perpetuus, dictator for life. For the first time, the face of a living Roman was struck onto coins. For the first time in the history of the Republic, a man held power that had no expiry. He was called Pater Patriae, father of the fatherland. He reformed the calendar, designed the system of leap years, created what we call the Julian calendar, the direct ancestor of the one still used across the world today. July, the 7th month, bears his name, Julius. He regulated grain distribution, founded colonies for veterans, began enormous public building projects, forums, temples, libraries. He planned campaigns against Parthia, against Scythia. He had ambitions that extended beyond anything yet attempted. But in the Senate chambers, something was breaking. The Republic had been built on the terror of kings. 5 centuries earlier, Rome had expelled its last king and sworn it would never have another. And now a man sat in permanent power, with his face on the coins, with a title that sounded, dangerously, unmistakably, like something else. Brutus watched, Cassius watched, and 60 senators began to talk in quiet rooms. The shape of a conspiracy. If this quiet journey brought you somewhere restful tonight, if these hours with history felt like a gentle way to let the day go, a subscribe, a like, or a kind word in the